July the 17th, 2021. Guys, you're looking at part one of a remix of a video that was taken down several years ago, and I mentioned it, and some of you had requested I redo it. And as I was researching it the last few days to redo it and get the information back together, as I mentioned before, I discovered a whole new chapter. And so what I'm going to do, instead of just starting with the moment that the comet was noticed by not only the Chinese fleet in the South Pacific Ocean, but by many nations, Japan, Taiwan, Vietnam. All of the astrologers had records up to a month ahead of time of this light in the sky getting brighter and closer to Earth. But anyway, you're looking at a picture of a Chinese junk that compared to a ship like Columbus and some of those guys sailed. Notice 440 feet on this one. That's tremendous. They were the largest, still to this day, largest wooden vessels to ever set sail to sea. And when they travel in these huge armadas with all type of backup and reinforcements, even ships just designed to carry water and filter water. And a lot of these I'm going to show you is kind of a history of what had happened through stamps. And this is the Republic of the Marshall Islands. And you're seeing a junk compared to a lot of other ships around it, how large it was. They would have up to 60 luxury cabins with balconies on that rear part of it. But again, it would be an armada. And the Chinese had built up about 1,000 ships and were traveling all over the world. And Xing He, who you're looking at right here, was kind of the leader of building the Chinese nation up to one of the most powerful nation in the 1400s that the planet has probably ever seen. But it's saying Admiral Xing He was the Columbus from the Far East. But as we go through this series, you'll learn that he was in America way before Columbus. And these are some stamps, and it tells a very good story. Top stamp says 600 years ago, the first long voyage of the Chinese Admiral Xing He began. Between 1405 and 1431, he conducted 7 voyages to the Pacific, 2 to the Indian Ocean, and 2 to the Persian Gulf. It is supposed that he also reached America. We'll get into that deeper. Celebrating these voyages, a lot of different stamps regarding Xing He and his armada were issued. It says Xing He was born in the year 1371 in a town called Jining today, in Yunnan province of China. At birth, he was called Ma Sabo and was raised as a Muslim. Many people think that the legend of Sinbad was actually about this character. It says in 1832, an army of the Ming dynasty conquered Yunnan, and Xing He was imprisoned at the age of 11. 3 years later, in 1835, he was selected for service at the court of the emperor and therefore castrated. That's where these many of their military leaders came from. He worked in the house of the Prince Zhu Dai, where he soon acquired his trust. This is how it started. Xing He helped the prince in a 3-year-long bloody succession war. After his heroic deeds at the Battle of Jingluba in the vicinity of Beijing, he was named Xing He. In 1402, Zhu Dai became the 3rd emperor of the Ming dynasty, and Xing He was already his closest advisor. The emperor called his epoch Yongle, translated eternal joy. You're looking at stamps, Marshall Islands, Singapore with these junks. He was very ambitious to live up to his plans. First of all, he ordered Xing He to build an enormous fleet. Between 1404 and 1407, guys, just 3 years, 1,681 ships were built or overhauled. Shipbuilding, navigation, and maritime trade prospered, like the early Silk Roads and what we're seeing now. The size of this armada seemed improbable to most researchers, that many dismissed as a myth. Nevertheless, more and more remnants of these ships were actually discovered, which confirmed the numbers. That's going to be in part 2. According to Chinese sources, Xing He commanded 70 fleets with 300 ships or more. It was more. It was 1,000 ships. You'll find out as we go through this. and 30,000 strong crew. In 1405, on his first journey, the fleet consisted of 317 ships. Listen to how powerful this was. Among them were the legendary treasure ships, the large ones, the Fuchan warships, patrol boats, horse ships, supply ships, troop transporters, and water tankers. The water tankers, guys, could desalinize water. Think about that. Again, all of this is the history leading up to the Great Comet and why, more than likely, these things happen. It says these huge junks were called treasure ships because they were valuable as treasure. Some data showing length was 476 to 537 feet, beam 180 feet, loading capacity 3,600 tons with 1,600 tons of ballast. They contained 16 waterproof bulkheads made from bamboo. Listen to this, which could be flooded during a storm to gain additional ballast for stability reasons, an innovation long before the Europeans discovered it. You'll find the Chinese had been to all these places, including America. The trunk had 3 layers of planks made from teak and bamboo. The junks had 7 to 10 masts with lug sails and topsails, which were strengthened with continuous bamboo battens. Guys, if you sailed as long as I have, you understand a lot of that. And again, now the battens are plastic. But we're looking at a history through stamps. And imagine this armada, and it built up to 1,000 ships until that great comet hit. And they came home 900 short. And it ended the Ming Dynasty. And the way the Chinese operate, if something disastrous happens, guys, then they figure that God is not in favor of the God Emperor, and that gets changed. The armament consisted of 24 bronze cannons with crosshairs, flamethrowers, catapults for grenades, and crossbow machine guns, which could fire 20 arrows in 15 seconds. They also carried naval mines called underground thunder, ascending to the sky. Gunpowder is a Chinese invention. All sails were allegedly made from blood-red silk. The trunks were painted white. This was a special paint made from lime and poisonous oil in order to protect the wood from drilling worms. Each ship sported a large pair of eyes painted on the brow. This is, again, history. The stamps do not show all the details. The stamp to the right contains a small copy of the Nina, length 69 feet, and this was of Columbus to provide a size comparison for the gigantic dimensions of the treasure ships. The crew consisted of 650 men. Think about this. There were 60 luxury cabins for every important person. Some of them even had balconies. The treasure ships were the largest wooden ship boats to ever sail on the high seas, still to this date. Zheng He's flagship was called Raft of the Stars. Guys, if you don't understand the Egyptian connection, and I said this before, all of the gods from the beginning, from the very beginning, from the Sumerians, the Anunnakis, through the Romans and the Greeks, the Mayans, all of these were the same group of people with different names. But it's, again, I'm going through the history. The stamps are very interesting. I'd love to see them in full color, and you can see from the top the crossbows in the stamp and the cannons on the wheels in the stamp. They had traveled everywhere. They had done trade everywhere, just as they're doing now. It says the Fuchan war junks had 5 masts and a length of about 164 feet. The patrol boats were approximately 120 feet long and had 8 pairs of oars. The horse ships had 8 masts, a length of 337 feet, and a width of 130 feet. Beside the horses, they transported goods and repair materials for the fleet. They had complete backup. The supply junks were 7-mast ships with a length of approximately 256 feet, a width of 115 feet. They carried the food for the crew, logistics. The troop transporters had 6 masts. Let me say this. Same thing happened today, or it's happening today. The logistics are centuries old, still being used. Again, the troop transporters had 6 masts, a length of 220 feet, a beam of 82 feet. No statements regarding the size of the water junks are known to exist. They were relatively small, had fresh water on board, and were able to distill fresh water. The average speed of the fleet was about 4.8 knots. Again, you're seeing a picture of the fleet in the stamp above, with your main ship in the front and your other vessels around that. On each of his voyages, Zheng He's fleet consisted of over 300 ships with 28,000 to 3,000 men. Now, they had different fleets. They got up to 1,000 ships. The crew consisted of sailors, soldiers, merchants, physicians, pharmacists, astronomers, an official of the imperial court, tailors, carpenters, cooks, translators, eunuchs, and concubines. The sailors consisted of many prisoners. Some things never change. The task of the fleet including recovering tribute payments for the Dragon Throne. As most of the foreigners were unwilling to, a contingent of soldiers were part of the crew. Trading was another important task. The fleet imported silk, porcelain, ceramics, lacquered goods to far coast. They carried home rare tropical woods, exotic spices, essences, pearls, jewels, minerals, sulfur for gunpowder, exotic animals, and cloth. They traveled the entire world. Their stamps show they brought home giraffes. Again, they were the leaders of the world at that time. And were they peaceful? Well, they carried cannons and troops. And what do you think? And as we look at this, it's very important to realize we're looking at a lot of history that's not really taught. Now, I'm sure the Chinese and a lot of the Asian nations are more aware of this than we are, but it's very interesting to me to see this. And you're looking at the nations around the world now that are becoming involved, and the plans that have been going on for hundreds and thousands of years as far as world control. Again, Zheng He understood to link business, diplomacy, discoveries, and scientific research, just as we see today. A lot of scientific research in certain areas, we're all feeling it. It says it wasn't always that peaceful. In 1407, on his first journey, Zheng He met the pirate Zhen Suyai, which blocked the Strait of Malachi, possibly the Strait. Misprint here says, in a merciless battle, the pirate fleet was shot to pieces. 5,000 pirates were killed, and Zheng Suyai was imprisoned. He was brought to China and executed. In 1411, Zheng He intervened on Sri Lanka in a local conflict and was forced to conduct his only land battle, which he won with a stroke of genius. Again, looking at the stamps, guys, you're seeing compasses. And there were maps on some of these stamps that they're saying that Columbus and some of the other fellows at that time had attained these Chinese maps of South America, North America, maps that they didn't have at that time. And these maps were used. There was trade going all around the world. A lot of it had to do with these maps. If you look at the stamps in the top left, you see the compass, things like that. And they had the tools, they had the knowledge, they had the wisdom that goes back to ancient times from the first men. On the stamp on the left, it shows the courses of Zheng He's fleets. It is historically proven that Zheng He accomplished 7 voyages into western directions. He reached the coast of Sumatra, Taiwan, Java, Ceylon, India, and Persia. He sailed to the Persian Gulf, Arabia, the Red Sea, and the African East Coast. Some people believe that Zheng He ship also crossed the Pacific, rounded the Cape of Good Hope, and reached the coast of America, Australia, and Greenland. And there's a lot of proof of that as we get through this video. Zheng He's helmsman had a compass which they called a magnetic turtle. Instead of a compass needle, a small metal turtle pointed the directions to the south. Again, ancient technology. They also had starboards which one could measure the height of the polar star and derive the geographical width. On the stamp on the first Chinese compass is depicted, the stamp on the right, a spoon compass. check that out, guys. It says the English historian Galvin Menzies. Now, guys, this is important because he's the author of the second part of this video. He was a seaman in earlier times, wrote a book called 1421, As China Discovered the World. Menzies collected proof from around the globe that the sixth voyage was conducted by 4 fleets, which should sail around the entire world. In 1424, a map fragment emerged in Europe on which the Caribbean islands are depicted. It is rumored that a copy of this map had been passed on to Columbus. Likewise, Magellan already knew, due to the existing maps, that he would find a passage to the Pacific in the south. Even Cook had used the maps which showed countries which were still not discovered. In 1993, a wreck of a junk was discovered in California, whose timbers were cut in 1410. They did the carbon data. A Chinese document from the year 1430 shows exact representations of the American animal world. Menzies collected proof that the Chinese people had established small settlements at all American coast, kind of like California now. In 2002, Menzies presented his results to the Royal Geographical Society. If this proves out to be true, the old conception of the discovery of the world must be thoroughly overhauled. Guys, there's too much history to deny that. And it's amazing to see it. And power leads to destruction. And pride leads to destruction. And we're seeing it happen then. We saw it happen then. And that's kind of what may be happening now. In the year 2006, the BBC and The Economist magazine published a Chinese map of the world, which originates from the year 1763. It was claimed that this map was a copy of a map from 1418. One can clearly recognize North and South America, Australia, and the Antarctic. According to The Economist, this map is proof that Zheng He discovered America 70 years before Columbus. Today, it is commonly accepted that the map is a copy of the maps depicting the world of the 18th century. Facts like the Mercator projection and the wrong representation of the California Peninsula speak of this theory. On the stamp, you can see the map of the Admiral Piri Reis from the year 1513. To the right, Africa, Spain, and Portugal are depicted. On the left, the outlines of the east coast of North and South America are easily recognizable. So much history's been erased, guys, left out. And again, that's why I'm going back to this part so that you understand part 2. Now, things happen, and in some of the records, they don't show you what part 2 of this video is about. This is part of it. In 1424, the Emperor Zhu died. A radical change of direction happened in political China. Zheng He could still begin his last voyage in 1431, but when he returned, the treasure ship fleet was docked forever. You'll understand what the Great Comet did. It took out 900 of the 1,000 ships. Political controversy developed between the officials of the Confucian school and the eunuch administration. The Confucius group became dominant and propagated concentration on more domestic agriculture and promotion of internal cultural affairs. Issues like maritime trade and foreign relations were cut back. Think about this. What did I say earlier? A great catastrophe had hit China. Zheng He's only land battle was just one battle. It was a navy. And when this comet hit, it destroyed that navy. And that's why they say it was part. Not only that, again, these god emperors could be taken down very quickly by the people if they thought the supreme god had lost favor with this leader. This resulted in total isolation of China. The idea of political centralism became generally accepted. The channel system of China was improved. Inland economy was strengthened. Building of ships with more than one mast was officially forbidden. Think about that. Wonder why. Wrath of God. Zheng He probably died in 1433 on his last voyage and was buried in high seas close to the city of Nanjing lies his official grave, but is rumored to be empty. Before the start of his last voyage, Zheng He had a premonition and ordered to build a pillar with the following inscription: "We sail more than 100,000 li, approximately 50,000 kilometers, over enormous waters," listen, "and saw enormous waves. He was a survivor of the comet, which piled up like mountains touching the sky, and we discovered the barbarian lands far away, hidden in fine blue shimmering fogs, while our sails filled up like clouds day and night." Think about that. And the history, the conquest of the world ended by the hand of God. Stay tuned for part 2. We're going to get into the comet. Very interesting, guys. It's a heads up.